You were taught that faith is about certainty. No questions, no hesitation, just bold belief. But what if that's not the full story? What if faith doesn't mean never doubting, but choosing to stay even when you do? You're not a failure for wrestling. You're human, and God knows. The late-night thoughts, the silent what-ifs, the times you nodded in church but didn't feel a thing, the prayers that felt like they floated into nothing. You don't talk about it, afraid they'll call it weakness. But deep down, the questions remain, and you wonder, does God get disappointed by doubt? Does he pull away when your faith stutters? Or worse, is he silent because you're not spiritual enough? These aren't just questions, they're wounds, and you've carried them alone for far too long. The church taught you how to speak faith, but not how to survive doubt. So when it showed up, you hid it, smiled through it, buried it under verses you didn't believe that day. But God never asked you to fake it. He never demanded certainty. He asked for truth. And the truth is, you're not trying to leave him. You're just trying to understand him. That's not rebellion. That's relationship. Real ones wrestle. Real ones ask. Even Jesus said, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" That wasn't weakness. That was honesty. And heaven didn't punish him for it. Why would it punish you? Your doubt doesn't scare God. It doesn't lessen his love. It's part of the journey, not a detour. And maybe what you call a crisis is actually a conversation waiting to happen. Some of the strongest believers in Scripture doubted. Thomas walked with Jesus, saw the miracles, and still questioned. John the Baptist, who baptized the Messiah, sent word asking, "Are you really the one?" And what did Jesus do? He didn't shame them. He met them, spoke gently, offered evidence, affirmed their worth. Doubt doesn't disqualify you. It means you're thinking, feeling, wrestling honestly. That's the soil where real faith grows. Not blind obedience, but raw connection. The kind that says, "I don't get it, but I'm here." The kind that's bold enough to ask the hard questions and still wait for God's voice. You're not failing, you're learning. You're shedding second-hand answers to find something personal. That's sacred and rare and brave. What if God isn't looking for a perfect theology, but a present heart? What if the questions you're afraid to ask are actually doorways to deeper faith? Not the kind you inherited, but the kind you built. You think you need to fix your doubts before you approach him, but maybe doubt is the reason he's drawing closer, like a good father who kneels down when his child is confused, not to correct first, but to comfort. That's who he is. Not a God who backs away when your hands shake, but one who reaches out anyway, who sits in the silence, who holds space for every sigh. You don't need a sermon right now. You need presence, not answers, but arms. And that's exactly what God offers. Not condemnation, not dismissal, just himself. Faith isn't pretending to have it all figured out. It's showing up when you don't. It's choosing to stay when your soul feels silent. You think God's love hinges on your certainty, but it's deeper than that. He loves doubters, loves seekers, loves the ones who say, "I want to believe, help my unbelief." That's not a contradiction. That's courage. You're not disqualified because you have questions. You're brave enough to ask them, brave enough to bring them to God instead of walking away. And that makes you stronger than you think. He's not frustrated by your thoughts. He's the one who shaped your mind. So come as you are, uncertain, unraveling, but willing. That's faith, not loud, Not shiny, but real. The kind that survives storms, not because it never wavers, but because it never walks away. Maybe the version of God you were taught wasn't the full picture. Maybe he's not the cold judge who folds his arms when you question him. Maybe he's the father who leans in when your voice shakes. Maybe he's more gentle than you imagined, more patient than religion ever described. And maybe he's not looking for performance, just presence. You don't have to come to him with perfect words or polished faith. Just come, doubt and all, because the very fact that you're wrestling means you haven't walked away. You're still seeking, still hoping, still showing up, and he meets you there, in the not knowing, in the wondering, in the ache of, God, are you really there? He doesn't shout from a distance. He whispers from within. That's who he's always been. You thought faith was the absence of doubt, but maybe it's the choice to believe anyway. Maybe real faith isn't found in the loud declarations, but in the quiet decision to stay when everything feels uncertain. You're not the only one who's wrestled with this. The prophets did. The disciples did. The ones God used most had questions too. And that didn't disqualify them. It prepared them. Because faith that's never been tested isn't strong. It's shallow. But the kind that's gone through darkness, silence, confusion, and still comes back, that kind can't be shaken. And maybe that's what God's building in you. Not a shiny, scripted religion, but a deep, personal trust. One that knows, I don't have to feel God to follow him. I just have to believe he hasn't left. So maybe the goal isn't to get rid of every question, but to learn how to carry them with God. Maybe faith is less about having answers and more about trusting when you don't. You've come this far not because you've had it all together, but because something in you refused to let go. That matters. That counts. And maybe it's more sacred than certainty ever was. God isn't disappointed in your doubt. He welcomes it. He uses it. He meets you in it. Because he knows that honest faith, faith that wrestles, that weeps, that wonders, is the kind that lasts. You're not falling away, you're falling deeper. So the real question is, will you bring your doubt to him or carry it alone?